Joe, would you please join me here? Joe is the author of a great book that I recently also read, Storytelling Edge. I really enjoyed that book, Joe. There's some concept in that book that I constantly think about. My favorite framework is now balancing familiarity and novelty. I always think about that. So thank you for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're going to dive into that here today.
Beautiful. Also, your roots in Lithuania, or?
Yes, it is. My roots are Lithuanian indeed. I am actually just noticing here that my presentation is not yet uploaded. So let me upload that and I will just share my screen for a different version while we get started.
Beautiful. All right. Well, take it away.
Oh, there it goes. So Morgan has it. Great. Perfect. Well, thank you everyone for being here with me today. Yes, I'm Joe Lazauskas. I'm the co-author of a book called The Storytelling Edge about the art and science of storytelling, and the head of marketing at Contently, one of the world's leading enterprise content creation platforms. But so excited to talk today about one of my favorite subjects, which is the science of storytelling. And so to jump right into it, I want you all to travel back in time with me. The year is 2007. Really get into it. Umbrella is the song of summer. Hipsters here in my hometown of New York are wearing far too much neon. And this man, Dr. Paul Zak, is on an airplane back from a neuroscience conference. Now, Dr. Zak is a pretty impressive guy. He's about 6'5" with the chest to waist ratio of Mr. Incredible. And he's a neuroscientist, which is honestly just kind of infuriating. And so he's back on this plane from a neuroscience conference, and he's crunched over in his seat in coach, typing on his laptop with little pterodactyl arms because he wants to get all of his work done before he gets home and he sees his wife and kids. And he's sitting there, he's doing his work, he's typing on his laptop, where suddenly turbulence hits. And I'm not talking about normal turbulence. I'm talking about grab onto your armrests, call out for your mama, we're going down type of turbulence. And so he does what a lot of us would do. He turns on a movie. Lucky for him, his flight had $1 Million Baby, which had just won the Oscar for Best Picture. And so as he starts to get engrossed in this touching father-daughter tale, the world just melts away. And before he knows it, the movie is over and he feels someone shaking him on the shoulder going, "Are you okay? Are you okay? Are you okay?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'm fine." And then he realizes he's been sobbing uncontrollably. So Dr. Paul Zak the next day goes into his office and he's kind of been thinking about this all night. And he runs into one of the psychologists on his team. And he tells her about this story. He's like, "Isn't that really weird? I had this reaction and didn't even realize it." And she said, actually, she wasn't surprised at all because psychologists use stories to change people's moods all the time. And so that got Dr. Zak thinking. This is his thinking phase right here. Because what he and his team had been studying was oxytocin, which at the time we didn't know a lot about. We knew that it appeared in the brains of mothers when they were with their children, with some family and friends. But other than that, we didn't really know what caused the production of oxytocin, this kind of magical neurochemical that created feelings of empathy and human connection. And so after this experience, Dr. Zak got an idea. What if it's actually just wasn't something that was produced through human-to-human interaction, but something that was actually produced in mass when we heard great, touching stories that really spoke to us? And that's what he and his team at Claremont University started to investigate. And that's actually what they found. They found that when we hear a great story, it makes our brain synthesize oxytocin, this magical neurochemical that triggers feelings of empathy and human connection. When people have high levels of oxytocin in their system, they're more likely to give to charity. They're more likely to feel connected. And they found something else out as well. And so for this next part, I'm going to have to give probably the simplest neuroscience lesson ever. So essentially, our brains run on a series of electric pulses. That's neural activity. And what Dr. Zak and his team found was that when people heard or watched a great story, that neural activity in their brain increases fivefold. It's like someone flicked on a switchboard, illuminating the city of the mind. Stories illuminate the city of the mind. And neuroscientists have this saying that neurons that fire together wire together. So essentially what happens when we watch or read or hear a really great story is that all these neurons are firing together at a much greater velocity than usual. They're then wiring together, which is why we're much more likely to remember a piece of information when it's told to us through a story than when we just get it through a fact sheet or a list of a bunch of bullet points with stats, right? It's because stories make us remember. And here we can see that stories do actually two really close key things. Stories make us remember because all those neurons are wiring together. And stories make us care because great stories are triggering the synthesization of oxytocin. And when you think about it, this is what all brands really want, right? We want people to remember our brands. And we want them to care about us. But that's not all that they found. So in Dr. Zach's studies over the years, they came up with this measurement called immersion, which is essentially a combination of studying the production of oxytocin in people when they are engaging with great stories through the vagus nerve, which runs from the heart to the brain, but you also can measure it in the forearm, and different heart rate measures to mention attention. How much attention are you paying to a piece of content? And in a study with BBDO a few years ago, they found that when immersion levels passed a certain threshold of immersion, what we'd call someone being immersed in a story, they were able to then predict purchase actions by those folks with an 83% accuracy. So here we see something even more important for marketers is that stories make our brains want to buy, which is what all brands really want. And the reason that content marketing, this practice of telling great brand stories to help people, to make them feel like your brand understands their problems, has a solution for them, having a great brand story that connects with people. The reason all of this works is because we as human beings are inherently storytelling animals. Our brains are programmed for stories. The big issue that we see, though, is that most brands are not great at telling stories. I've been writing and reporting on the branded content industry for about a decade now. I've done a ton of work at a content strategist, a lot of competitive analysis. And let me tell you, most of the brand storytelling out there kind of sucks. And the study by Becken found that the top 5% of content, of branded content out there, gets 90% of the attention. And I think there are two ways that you can look at this. One is you can look at this and say, oh, this is too hard. I'll never get in that top 5%. Why do I even try? But if you're attending this conference, I have a feeling you look at this the way that I do, which is that if I can get in that top 5%, I can leave my competitors lingering in the shadows and I can have a huge competitive advantage over them. But this all leads us to this question of how do you break through? When every day as a marketer publishing content online, it can often feel like you're screaming into a hurricane of noise. You're competing with a million other stories bugging in your consumers' pockets. So how do you break through? And the answer, I believe, is to tell stories that your customers' brains can't help but love. And that's what we're going to talk about how to do here today. The 4 keys to highly immersive content: relatability, novelty, fluency, and tension. As I found doing research and reporting and spending a ton of time with neuroscientists over the years, these are the 4 keys that we found are incredibly key to highly immersive content. So let's start with relatability. So relatability is this sense of, I know this world, I can see myself in this story. Relatability is the reason why when we're teenagers, we can't help but go to see teen movies, why we flock to teen movies. And the same reason is why my mom's favorite movie is Something's Gotta Give with Diane Keaton. We are drawn to movies and films that we can see ourselves in. And this is actually a tactic that has worked really well for media companies as well. It's one of the keys to BuzzFeed's growth and their success in becoming the fastest growing media company of all time, is they very much played on this sense of relatability. They publish a ton of articles like this. There are 21 things that could definitely only happen at Stanford. And when you first see this article, you might think, what is BuzzFeed's strategy here? They're trying to go for a mass audience play. They're trying to be a global media company. Why are they creating a piece of content that only appeals to people at Stanford? But here's the thing. They're playing on a very, very interesting dynamic with relatability. Because this was published in 2016, so Facebook was bigger at the time, at least among usage amongst millennials. People who went to Stanford or currently go to Stanford would see this post, and it's so relatable, filled with inside jokes, that they couldn't help but click and share it with their social network. And their social graph is filled with other people who go to Stanford. And those people also can't help but click and like and share. And so eventually you end up with pretty much everyone who ever went to Stanford and had a Facebook account seeing that post and engaging with it and sharing it. So while it seems like a really niche, narrow audience at first, they end up reaching hundreds of thousands of people. This is the BuzzFeed version that gets me, right? 35 signs. We were raised by a Jewish mother. I already feel guilty. I'm not going to my third Seder this week. And it's something that can be used by B2B brands as well. This is one of our customers at Contently, Texas Instruments, who published this post, 7 things that only an analog engineer would understand. Not relatable at all to me, right? I didn't get it at all, but it did incredibly well amongst engineers who really loved it, felt like Texas Instruments got them. And this tactic of calling out the audience that you want to reach, that you're creating content for in the headline works really, really well. But then also immediately in the post, you need to introduce a story, a character, a protagonist that your target audience can relate to. One of my favorite examples of this is with GE, which about a few years ago realized that they had to really recruit a lot more engineers if they were going to compete with Google, Facebook, Amazon. They were losing the talent war. So they created this series of videos starring a character named Owen, who was trying to explain to everyone in his life that he was going to go work as an engineer at GE, and they just couldn't understand it, to basically relate to other engineers that they wanted to recruit. So let's take a quick look at that one.
Proud of you, son. GE, manufacturer.
Well, that's why I dug this out for you.
It's your grandpappy's hammer, and he would have wanted you to have it.
It meant a lot to him.
Yes, GE makes powerful machines, but I'll be writing the code that will allow those machines to share information with each other. I'll be changing the way the world...
You can't pick it up, can you? Go ahead. You can't lift the hammer.
It's okay, though. You're going to change the world.
All right.
Hi, I'm Mike.
I love this ad. Oh, sorry.
What is DollarShaveClub.com? Well, for $1 a month, we send high quality.
It's got a preview of the next video we're going to see. I love this video. It's super funny, but also was really impactful for GE. So after this campaign, which they end up being so popular, they turned into some national TV ads. They saw an 8x increase in engineer applications, which was huge. And when I talked to Linda Boff, GE CMO, she told me that it was so successful that it really transformed the entire way that they viewed the future of their company. It led to a reality where when they would bring the actor who played Owen to campus, he was like a celebrity there because so many people had come because they loved the campaign or worked there and felt like the campaign really related to them. And has been huge in GE's overall continued turnaround over the past decade. Okay, so second key to great immersive storytelling, novelty. And this is the sense that, oh, this is something new that I haven't seen before. Because similarly, when we see something new in the world, in an environment, our brains are programmed to peek up and notice that. It also triggers, in many cases, a flood of dopamine into the brain because we sort of evolved to be encouraged to go and find new things in our environment, new resources, new food, etc. So we're very much drawn to novelty. And this is a huge one for so many brands because there are so many brands out there that are just doing the same thing, telling the same stories, websites that look exactly the same. But when really, if you want to engage consumers, you need to introduce new ideas or concepts into their lives. And also just create content with a lot of new things that will catch their attention. One of my favorite examples of this is from a guy named Michael Dubin. And Michael is a man after my own heart. He was improv comic / marketer in his late 20s in New York. He was found himself one day at his dad's Christmas party talking to one of his dad's kind of weird, kind of crazy friends. And he's having a drink with this guy, and this guy is like, yeah, you know, I've got these hundreds of thousands of razors from China that are super cheap. I'm just trying to figure out something to do with them. And Michael thought and was like, okay, should I just go and kind of say I'm getting another drink and ditch this guy? But then he thought, no, you know what? This is kind of interesting. Let me hear him out. And as they're talking at this Christmas party, Michael got an idea, which is that for guys like him, buying razors was a huge pain in the butt. You have to go to the pharmacy, you got to get an attendant to go bring one of those keys, open up the case, get the razors, right? You've heard this story probably in a lot of razor ads that have come since on podcasts. And it was super annoying. And he thought, what if instead we could create a subscription service where you say you paid $1 a month and got razors delivered directly to you? And so he had this idea, but no one would really fund it or support it because who was he? He was a part-time marketer and an improv comic. So Michael did what he did best. He took his last $4,500 in his bank account and he made a super funny video to launch his product. And here's what he made.
Hi, I'm Mike. Hi, I'm Mike, founder of DollarShaveClub.com. What is DollarShaveClub.com? Well, for $1 a month, we send high-quality razors right to your door. Yeah, $1. Are the blades any good? No. Our blades are f***ing great. Each razor has stainless steel blades, an aloe vera lubricating strip, and a pivot head. It's so gentle a toddler could use it. And do you like spending $20 a month on brand name razors? 19 go to Roger Federer. I'm good at tennis. And do you think your razor needs a vibrating handle, a flashlight, a back scratcher, and 10 blades? Your handsome-ass grandfather had 1 blade and polio. Looking good, pop-up! Stop paying for shave tech you don't need. And stop forgetting to buy your blades every month. Alejandro and I are going to ship them right to you. We're not just selling razors, we're also making new jobs. Alejandro, what were you doing last month?
Not working.
What are you doing now?
Working.
I'm no Vanderbilt, but this train makes hay. So stop forgetting to buy your blades every month and start deciding where you're going to stack all those dollar bills I'm saving you. We are DollarShaveClub.com, and the party is on.
I know karate, I know jiu-jitsu, I drive like a gangster when I'm coming to see you, see you.
All right. I love that ad. It's hilarious and introduces so many new elements. Polio jokes, a bear with a machete, probably one of the weirdest Make It Rain scenes of all time, but also to introduce a new concept into the world. And so this video took off. They got 4,800 or 9,600 orders in the first 48 hours after it launched. And this eventually created $1 billion brand. This $4,500 investment created $1 billion brand when Unilever bought them a few years later. And what's really interesting about that is that by most analyst estimates, Dollar Shave Club was only worth about $300 million. But because they had such deep relationships with their audience through the stories that they told, not just this, they released another hilarious video every time they launched a new product. With every order, Dollar Shave Club would send a bathroom reader filled with great stories to their customers. They launched one of the best men's magazines, bar none, by a brand or not, called Mel, that genuinely rivals GQ. Unilever just announced they were shuttering that, which made me really, really sad. But for the last 6 years, it's been one of the best brand publications on earth. And through those relationships, they were able to create this $1 billion brand. And that's really, here we see the power of novelty. Okay, third key, fluency. And this is basically how easy is it to get absorbed in the story. So as a writer, this is something that I say a lot. I'm no Hemingway. And when my co-author Shane and I were writing our book and looking at some of our past writing, we wanted to put this to the test. So we put our writing through a grade level analyzer. And what we found was that our writing was at a 7th grade level. Not very good, right? But then we put Hemingway's writing through a grade level analyzer and found it was 4th grade level. Thought, that's interesting. So then we started putting more and more of our favorite authors through this analyzer. put through everyone from J.K. Rowling to Fitzgerald through this analyzer. And what we found is consistently the best writers wrote Toni Morrison at a 3rd, 4th, 5th grade reading level, which is really interesting. And I think is a great insight for a lot of brands, because so many brands conflate complexity with authority. They think that they want to write at the most college level, complex way possible in their white papers, in their content, so that people think they're really smart. But that's in fact not what people want. The majority of US consumers don't read at a high school level. And even those of us that do read at a high school or college level don't really enjoy reading stuff that's written at that level, right? It's verbose, it's academic, it's not pleasant at all to read. And this goes for video content as well. A lot of video content, especially that I see in the financial services space, in the healthcare space, is some old white CEO staring at a camera and talking for 20 minutes. No one wants to watch that. Media studies, as well as neuroscience studies of in-feed video ads, have found that most consumers turn out if there's not action and story within the first 3 seconds of a video. In a study that Neuroinsight, a company that I've done some neuroscience research with, of in-feed Twitter videos, found that an early story arc videos 50% more likely to be viewed past 3 seconds. The presence of people, characters, protagonists that you can connect with created increased emotional intensity when introduced in the first 3 seconds. Topical content as well made it more likely to be viewed past the first 3 seconds. So you need that quick fluency to grab people in. So how can you make your content as fluid as possible? Think about the channel you're creating for. Is this custom to that channel? Is this content that can actually live within this channel and the way people are used to consuming it? Are you writing at a very fluent level? And does your video have quick cuts, actions, protagonists, etc.? And finally, our 4th key is tension. So Aristotle once said that the key to a great story is establishing the gap between what is and what could be. And if you think about it, your favorite movies, this is usually the case. Your favorite rom-coms, right? The guy likes the girl, but she doesn't even know that he is. So there's this really gap between what is, him pining for her, and what could be them together. Then he gets to know her and he starts to close the gap. But then what happens? The a-hole boyfriend gets introduced and the gap opens again. But then they start to bond more. But then he embarrasses himself at her sister's wedding, and that gap opens again until in Act 3, he wins her over and everything is great. And this is the case for heist movies. Danny Ocean and his crew trying to rob the casino. They start to make progress. Something goes wrong. The gap opens. They start to close it. Something goes wrong. The gap opens. This is what keeps us at the edge of our seats. And this is ultimately something that needs to be utilized in brand stories as well. When we're doing our case studies, we need to create real tension with the protagonist we introduce about the gap between what was for them and what could be. When we do thought leadership about our industry, we need to acknowledge about what's not going well, what could be better, talk about that gap between what is and what could be. Because ultimately this tension is what makes a story a story. There's no storytelling without tension, without conflict. And while that can be scary for a lot of brands to talk about where things are imperfect, where they're not just right, that's really, really important to keeping people engaged. And next, to close this out, I do want to share one of my favorite B2B brand videos that uses tension perfectly.
I need some clicks.
Okay. I got some choice clicks right here, yo. Impressions, page views, followers.
Are they pure?
Man, I don't cut with bots.
How about likes? You got some likes?
Well, this is a high-class operation.
Come on. Everybody's doing it. I got my whole Q4 budget right here.
Whoa. Easy.
I just need enough to get me through this quarter.
Turn to the right.
Clicks. You were buying clicks. What will I tell the children?
That's the sound of the police. That's the sound of the beast. That's the sound of the police. That's the sound.
So big fan of this video because it captures a lot of the different elements that we see. It's relatable as a marketer. Like I felt like this guy before, right? End of the quarter, got to get my metrics up, feeling desperate. It introducing something new. I've never seen like likes and clicks like into drugs before. It's very fluent and moves super fast, and there's tension, right? You want to figure out what exactly is going on. Why is this guy getting in trouble? And so this campaign was just such a good example of how to use tension in B2B storytelling. So to finish out our 4 keys in the Story Brain checklist that I encourage you just to go through for every time you're coming up with a content idea, you're filling your content calendar. Relatability, does this speak directly to your audience and make them feel like they're a part of the story? Novelty, are you showing someone something they've never seen before? Fluency, are you making it as easy as possible for people to get engrossed in your content? And tension, are you establishing the gap between what is and what could be for your customers? And I've never been more excited about our potential to tell great brand stories today. The technology at our disposal has never been easier for one person to go out and create truly incredible content. And I think we're really entering a golden age for brands who want to build meaningful relationships with their audience and marketers who want to do so. So let's go out there. Let's use our best storytelling instincts as human beings and create content that breaks through. Thank you. And if we have any time, some time for questions. And if you guys have any questions afterwards, you can email me at laser@contently.com.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. My question would be about practical implementation of storytelling in business. So I run a company, and so I want to tell stories. So do I make funny ads that resonate? Is that the storytelling? How do I incorporate a coherent, cohesive, let's say an integrated story? So it's in my blog post, my paid ads, also my homepage. So how do you think about it, like rolling it out company-wide?
I think that it needs to start with the stories that you tell. One, I always say is start with a cohesive understanding of who your audience is, right? Like talk to them, interview them, do research about what they're searching for, what content they're sharing, what topics they're most likely to engage with. Like everything kind of has to flow from that. And then you also really need to understand who your company is, like what you stand for, what your values are. What is your unique perspective on the world that no one else has, and also what unique things do you have to share in your story, from maybe what your founding story is to different data, research, insights, perspectives that people at your company have that no one else has. And so then, that kind of helps you get what the pillars of your brand's content strategy should be, those meta topics that you want to own, your unique point of view and perspective on the world. And then a lot of stories can come under that. It could be funny stories that are designed to, one, communicate like why your brand exists, but also just make people laugh, deliver some value into their lives. At the bottom of the funnel, it can be more serious stories that's like, literally, this is the value prop for a company, and here's a toolkit for how you're going to tell the story of why your boss should bring us on board. There's going to be a ton of different stories that come out of that. But if you come into it with a really strong audience first approach, you're much more likely to tell these sort of stories that are relatable, that do capture people's attention and drive up purchase intent.
Joe, thank you very much. Very, very informative. Thank you. And guys, you can connect with Joe on LinkedIn. Anywhere else you're active on social?
Yeah, LinkedIn and Twitter. LinkedIn, I have a newsletter called The Storytelling Edge about a lot of this stuff every week that I put out. So you can follow me on there and subscribe there, or Twitter at Joe Lazauskas. Appreciate your time. And yes, it's such a good conference. Can't wait to see what's next.
Boom. All right. Thank you, Joe.